So I had to define the word aesthetic
Yes.
for a test at Briarcliff College in 2003. So I thought it was interesting and I thought it would be fun. So I am thinking about it first before I look for it, before I looked it up. And I'm thinking, well, I know it means artistic. I know it means a certain feel. I know it means a certain effect that it has on a person. And it's a subjective thing, I think. So generally, I had a nice little idea. Why that was an important question on a test that I had to define, I don't know. But then I did look up the word and I began to understand. Aesthetic comes from thesis. Aesthetic, the root aesthetic comes from thesis.
What is
Okay.
pathetic?
I'm sure that that's connected as well somewhere. And so a thesis or a theme obviously is a sort of text, is a sort of a subject, object, product, image, entity, or something that is something. It could be God, who is theos. Whether that is the right word, the same word, I don't know at this point. But aesthetic means outside of the text. So I began to understand, as I thought about it, I began to understand that aesthetic means a spin on a text. A spin on a text. So that, let's say I give you a piece of clay. Say I give you a piece of clay. Here is a lump of clay. Make something. You can shape it how you want. You can paint it like you want to make it into something you want. Well, everybody gets a piece of clay. The piece of clay by itself is not outside of an unbiased, uncustomed, unscripted piece of object. It's nothing. It's crude. It's raw. It's the raw deal. Okay? It becomes aesthetic when you do something to flavorize it. Give it some style. Give it a form. Give it a color. Give it something to make it look outside of what it is or by itself. So here we are all naked in front of God. We are all a text. But as we begin to dress ourselves with certain fashions, certain hairstyles, certain styles about our personality, we begin to develop an aesthetic. So everyone has an aesthetic. Okay, lacking aesthetic means one is unpolished and is simply crude. Okay, that's the aesthetic part. And it's very similar to the word eccentric. Eccentric means something similar. Centric means in the center, in the middle. Okay, eccentric means outside of the norm, outside of the middle. So when a person talks about being outside the box, we got to learn how to think outside the box. It means that inside the box you have clones. Everyone is a cookie cutter image of the other. Mostly everybody there is basically the same. To think outside the box, to have a lifestyle or a personality or a charisma or something about you that is outside of the norm would mean you are outside of the center. You are eccentric. So to you, what does eccentric mean? When a person says you're eccentric.
Somebody who walks off
the beaten path. Thank you. Eccentric. So aesthetic is somewhat similar. Aesthetic. The aesthetic or the center is the norm.
So aesthetic is the center?
Yes. Aesthetic is the thesis of the thing. The thesis of the text. Or the theme of the text. It's crude, it's unpolished, it's raw. What you do with it gives it an aesthetic. Something outside of what it is being empty on its
So
own.
literally, aesthetic means
Text or thesis, yes. So everyone is aesthetic,
so aesthetic.
but everyone has aesthetic.
So aesthetic is outside of the text.
Outside of the crude, raw text or subject or object, yes. For example, let's say you walk down the street and you see 10 people. This one is dressed like this. This one is dressed like that. They each have their own flavor, their own style, their own personality and how they express it, right? But if you see a homeless person who happens to wear pants somebody gave him, he happens to have a coat that he found somewhere, he happens to have shoes that one is different from the other, then he still has shoes, but he's not concerned with flavor, with style, with fashion. He just has shoes, crude, raw, no aesthetic about it. There's no artistic. Now, in some other way, you can say it's artistic in itself. Yeah, but no, that's saying another thing. Generally, we would say this guy has no aesthetic about him. But the guy walking next to him who does have a fashion sense, you'll say, that guy's got a cool aesthetic about him. But the homeless guy does not. So aesthetic is something on top of the crude raw material, and mostly everybody's got that.
Something extra.
Something extra. You could take two beautiful girls and they each dress a certain way, and the way that they dress and present themselves, makeup, hair, whatever, that would be
something personal. Is it something?
Yeah. It's different for each. Now it's a matter of opinion too, because if a person has this aesthetic thing, this aesthetic style about them, someone might say, "Nah, I ain't feeling that. That aesthetic is not impressing me." Oh, but that. So you see, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Aesthetic is in the eye of the beholder. So that some artistically oriented person might say, that homeless guy, that aesthetic, I'm feeling that. And this modern style, fashion, whatever, I don't go for that too much. But that's an eccentric way of thinking. That's not the norm. The norm is that people will find aesthetically pleasing those that have what most people would call a fashion sense and artistic way about them.
So how did we start about aesthetic?
What you used the word aesthetic, and I said, "Oh,
no, you used it."
Did I really?
Yeah, you wanted to use it.
Oh, okay. Then I said, "Well,
and
let's."
then you said, "Have you heard of the word?"
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. And I remember when I first. I mean, I had read and heard the word and only had a very, very vague understanding of what it means.
You wanted to use it for something. Right?
Well, I was in a class and we had to take a test, and the teacher said, "Hey, define this word." And I said, what an interesting challenge. This is going to be fun. Because I love words. I love words, period. So, and the interesting thing about my love for words is where I grew up, there wasn't necessarily a love for words. Okay? My older siblings had their intelligence. My mom and our immediate community had their own kind of intelligence. But the kind of intelligence that yields my kind of a vocabulary, my community didn't have. And my classes, my elementary school and junior and high school, they didn't enrich me. They themselves are not responsible for this. It's my own interest that I got from I don't know where. But I do remember that I always liked learning. I always liked learning. And even when I was a little boy, I remember when we first got our television and radio, I somehow became inclined to words, particularly intelligent and clever words. Intelligent words and clever words, especially when intelligent comedians would say clever, funny things, that seemed to get my attention. And not only humor, but also serious things like the sciences. Like if I saw a documentary or people were talking about science or the news, somehow intelligent things, whether humorous or not, always got my attention. So I had that inclination, I had the disposition. How I got it, I don't know. Obviously, I must credit God. So, if angels are real, oh, that reminds me of something I do want to share. If angels are real, and they are, and if they whisper into people's ears at times, and they do, then I believe that from the time I was a little child, I believe that angels put words in my ears, and whenever I heard people saying intelligent things, humorous and serious, I believe that angels kind of like open my ears to keep me in tune to that, give me an interest for those things. And all as I grew up, that remained, and then in reading as well, that remained, and in my writing, that remained. Obviously, well, even though I dropped out of Stony Brook University in 1976, I still read books. You know, even though I wasn't going to classes while I was there, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I got distracted. But I honestly wanted to go to college and become a psychologist. When I was in Bushwick High School at 16, 17, 18 years old, I read a lot and wrote a lot, even though I played hooky and I didn't go to class. I didn't take my classwork seriously, just enough to graduate, which I did graduate with honors.
Wow,
yeah,
from high school.
Yeah, no GED. Yeah, I actually finished high school and graduated with honors, with a regent's endorsement and all the bells and whistles that went with it.
Wow,
even though I
person.
don't consider myself a dedicated student. A dedicated student in life, yes, because even though one of my research papers that I did for school for English.
You graduated from
In
high school?
1974, one of my teachers at Bushwick High School, he said, "You didn't write this." I said, "I wrote this." He said, you didn't write this. You play hooky? You go around and make jokes in class? I see you in the hallways when you're not supposed to be there. You don't come to class? No, I don't believe you. You didn't write this. I said, "I actually wrote this paper." It had to do with psychological whatever. I was already reading Freud at 16 on my own, just for fun. But it translated into my schoolwork, and my teachers didn't believe it. When I got into Stony Brook University, also a couple of English professors said, "You could not write this." I said, "I wrote this," and she would write to read back to me what I wrote. "So you wrote this? Boom, 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 boom. You're gonna tell me that you wrote this?" Yes. She didn't believe it. So what am I gonna do? I gotta bring it down several notches. People always trying to encourage you to learn more, be intelligent, do your best.
Yeah.
Well, they don't believe it.
Better than those teachers.
Yes.
Shit.
Yeah. So it's even back then I was already 1,000 miles ahead of everybody. No, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. I don't know. I don't even want to know. But I'm just saying there were signals already that I was intelligent.
Hi.